been in sales for 19 years and I've read well over 50 books just on the topic of sales. And in the last 2 years, I've taken my agency from $0 to $50 million plus in annual annuity premium. And I'm going to tell you the top 6 books that I have read that have turned me into a killer annuity closer. And before I get into those books, I just want to remind you that I'm only writing annuity business with clients where it puts them in a better position and I'm acting in their best interest. This isn't just sell anybody out of self-interest, but it's actually to uncover real problems that you can solve with a great fixed index annuity. And so number 1 book is something very simple. It's a really great starter point. I learned this in face-to-face selling and it still applies in virtual, and that's how to make people like you in 90 seconds or less. And the key principles that I took away from that book, number 1 is energy, right? You can transfer energy. People can feel your energy. When you get good at it, when you can make contact with the lens of your camera, like it's the eye of your prospect, they can feel your energy. You can transfer that trust as the ultimate currency that you need to establish in virtual selling. And the other principle started with the physical version of this, and this is called mirroring. And very simply, when I was in a physical environment with my prospects, I would mirror them physically. I would match their body posture, standing position, breathing, tonality, cadence of speech. And these allowed me to create a natural and unconscious level of rapport. And so often people avoid doing this because they think it's going to be noticed. But in fact, on an unconscious level, your prospects will become more comfortable and more connected. That will ultimately allow you to have trust-based influence. And so that's a great book. It's very simple, but the principles matter. The next book is a famous one. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And once again, there's some simple principles in this book. Number 1 is be likable. All things being equal, a mentor of mine said, people buy from people they like, right? And so if you're going to choose who you do business with, why wouldn't it be something that increases your energy, increases your joy and that vibration, right? And so your energy and your attitude is transferred, but be likable. And the way you can be likable, where people can find that you're a great conversationalist, is to know the most important word to your prospect. And it is very simply their name. And so use their name and then go beyond their name and learn and focus on the most important topic to your prospect, which is themselves. Is the way you become interesting to your prospect is to be interested. Do not be focused on what you're going to say next. Be focused on what depth you can take your appreciation and interest in them and what they care about. And the more they feel understood, the more trust you will have. The next book is really just a more tactical. It's a great story. It's called Go for No. And in this book, it's very simple. It's in the title. It tells you to go for no. You see, I find so often amateurs in selling, especially in this virtual world of sales, is they take an absence of a response, maybe getting ghosted. And I have videos on my channel about how to solve for being ghosted. And the thing is what you'll find to have success in selling, you actually need to not get people to buy. You need to focus on getting decisions. No is an okay decision. Yes is an okay decision because you can learn from the no's. You can ask. It's like, I completely respect your position and why you arrived at no. I just want to understand for my own benefit, because I only presented what I know is in your best interest and would put you in a better position. So it's surprising to me that you're saying no, and I would love to just get the clarity before I close the file as to what led you to that decision. You need to try to collect no's. I would ask you if you can collect 100 no's before you make 100,000. And the only reason that you would is because how you're showing up in the process is not valuable to your prospect. You're trying to move through it rather than grow through it. And so go for no. Try to collect no's. Your goal is to get decisions. And if you focus on getting decisions, yeses and nos, the more nos you collect, the more yeses you will find along the way, especially if you seek to create more value for your prospects as you go. The next book in this list of 6 is this Persuasion Skills Black Book. I read this really early on, and it focuses on the principles of neuro-linguistic programming. It can be used for good and bad. We're talking about acting in people's best interest, going beyond best interest, leaving people better than they found them, even if that means pointing them to a different direction or a different person than working with us, because long term that is fulfilling and actually the most profitable thing you can do. And there's a few principles in this book that you'll take away. And number 1 is agreement frames. I talk about this. I just put a video out on my channel. Maybe drop objections in the comments and we'll send you a link to it. It's about basically, I think I handled 27 objections in 27 minutes and for virtual annuity sales. And the thing is the core principle that is at the center of all objection handling is this concept that I picked up in this book, and that is agreement frames. Okay. Okay, what's an agreement frame? It means that you need to start all disagreement, resistance from your prospect. I'll just label that all as objections with agreement. You need to take it on board. Hey, I agree that you said that. I can appreciate why you would feel that way, right? And you need to sit with an agreement. And then you realize that their objection can become the reason, if you know the language patterns, to take agreement and redirect to agreement and progress and to make something happen and get a decision from that prospect. Alrighty, the next book, the second to last book that I love here is Never Split the Difference. And this is a book on negotiation. And think about this, life is a negotiation. In all interactions, we are either doing the influencing or being influenced. Grant Cardone says, sell or be sold. Someone is selling their idea, and Never Split the Difference, this idea of negotiation where we're trying to negotiate for an action. Negotiation, the author of this book, Chris Voss, he says it's communication with consequence or communication for results. See, all communications have a consequence. Do you want to communicate and get a result? Then you should learn from this book, because the whole concept of this book is tactical empathy. And to get empathy reciprocated, it's not to help them understand, to let them know how smart you are. It's to help them feel understood, to let you know how interested you are in them. And so that was certainly something that came up in those first couple of books, How to Win Friends and How to Make People Like You in 90 Seconds or Less, and then is applied here. And here we're also going to use mirroring. But it gives you a simple language-based mirror that's certainly going to be useful in this virtual world of selling on Zoom and across video. And once again, people avoid do this because they think they're going to be called out for it. But in fact, you're just recognizing that you are actively engaged in the conversation and listening to what they said. Had a bad experience with my last advisor. A mirror would sound like a bad experience. See, it's a tonal inflection and just repeating the most important. It was a bad experience, and then get them to open up. And the more they open up, the more they feel they're being heard. The next thing you would do that they teach in this book, Never Split the Difference, is labeling, where you can label the driving emotion. And so if somebody had a bad experience, the driving emotion might be something like, hey, it seems like you had a bad experience with financial advisors. Hey, it seems like that you haven't really been able to find an advisor around your finances that would actually listen to what is important to you, right? And the only way you can label that type of emotion, that driving dynamic that informs how they've made decisions in the past, how they're likely to make them going forward, is if you're actively engaged. Now, a lot of people will avoid labels for two reasons. Number one is they feel that they're going to be wrong. And in fact, a mislabel is not a bad thing, because if you do a label right, which Chris Voss teaches, there's 3 frames of the label. It seems like, it looks like, it sounds like. And that's just a soft way, because if it's not accurate completely, they'll correct, they'll calibrate. No, actually, it's just this, right? And they'll just give you more information that will help you serve that person from their point of view. Empathy. That's one reason they avoid the label, because they would be wrong. The other reason they avoid the label is negative. And what you think, labeling a negative emotion would amplify a negative emotion. And so you're worried about that's going to dissolve. But in fact, the best thing you do is label the negative, and it will actually give you an opportunity to diffuse it. So labeling negative diffuses negatives. It does not amplify them. The final one is no-oriented questions. See, people are, especially sophisticated buyers, have been yes to death, right? You talk about the old school selling principles of how to get to yes, or another one would be these yes chains, and you want to create this momentum in yeses. And so people are they build resistance around that. And so what we want to do is we want to flip the script and ask a no-oriented question. And that's going to get us full consideration, because no has finality in their mind, so they're actually going to consider. And so we want an affirming no, where by saying no, they're actually agreeing to affirm what you said, which is going to give you the information to position your solution, if proper or suitable, to their benefit, so that they can see it for themselves. And so what's a no-oriented question? A simple one is, are you against? No-oriented questions are great in the latter stages. Hey, are you against moving forward with the plan I've proposed? No, I wouldn't be against. Or I would be if. And then they give you the important deal points that are important to you. Hey, is it a ridiculous idea? Is it crazy to think? Is it crazy that we would start the application, right? And so ask these no-oriented questions to get an affirming no, meaning they want to move forward by saying no. And it gets more consideration. So great. And ultimately, when you go through active listen so that you can mirror, label, and then close with no-oriented questions, you'll get trust-based influence, where the prospect will feel connected and trust in you, and empathy reciprocated. They'll feel understood and then want to be led by you, and you can influence them for their benefit to make a good decision. And then the final book is this book by Phil Jones, Exactly What to Say. If you become a client of ours, we send this book to you because it's just so applicable. And there are, I think, 21 magic phrases in this book that drive influence and impact. I'm just going to give you 2 of them. Number 1 is, what makes you say that? When somebody asks the question, hey, what makes you say that? And these are called calibrated questions, or a form of a calibrated question that Chris Voss talked about in our prior book, Never Split the Difference. But the reason I like what makes you say that is because when you ask a what question, you get more clarity clarity from the client because you understand what drove them to be the way that they are. You don't challenge them and get them defensive by asking the alternative to this, which is, why do you feel that way, right? Why do you think that? Don't ask why. Exchange why for what. Get drop defenses and ultimately get more clarity on what would influence your prospect for their benefit. And then the final one that comes out of this book is the idea of most people. Hey, most people, when we get to this point, they don't have any other questions. We just see if we can submit an application to actually get you approved for this plan, since we realize and agree that it's in your best interest. People want to be like most people, right? People have this identity of, it's the greatest influence, another book in marketing, Robert Cialdini's book on influence. And one of the things he talks about is the greatest driver of human behavior is to remain consistent with what they do believe, to remain like intellectually consistent. And so those are two of the phrases. And I love this book, and it's just so applicable. Phil Jones, great author, has got a lot of great stuff. Follow him on social media. And Chris Voss's YouTube channel is awesome. Highly recommend it. And see, listen, knowledge is not power. Reading these books alone, watching this video alone will not turn you into the annuity producer that you wish to be. You see, knowledge is potential power, and it's only powerful when implemented. And you have to realize that learning's on the other side of doing. One of my favorite ideas is that you cannot think your way across the bridge. You can't consume your knowledge into action. You must take action. You must act upon what you learn to apply and gain its power and leverage in your life for the benefit of others. When you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you deserve. Those are my favorite books. I've read all these other ones so that I can distill down to these 6, and hope it serves you well. If you found this video, drop a like. If you wanted any of the other videos that I referenced, drop the comments. Any other takeaways, drop them in the comments. And if not, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one. Juice.